He'll make it for sure. Now that's why I backed him on Tap Touch.
Hey, Luke.
Yes, Gene Simmons?
He's probably the best when it comes to this stuff.
Thanks, Gene.
You've got the touch. You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose Tap Touch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Hello and welcome to Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle for another week, and boy do we have a lot to get through. I've got a new co-host for this week as well, a man that I think everyone will be excited to hear from. We've got a very angry Aron Baynes to talk about, a pretty fascinating incident with him and the Cairns Taipans to get through. The Tasmania JackJumpers were impressive over the weekend. The Adelaide 36ers kept losing. We've got the New Zealand Breakers and the Cairns Taipans heading off to the US, and plenty more to get through. We're here thanks to Hoops Heaven and Tap Touch. But as I mentioned off the top, I'm Chris Pike, but very excited to talk to this man and fascinated to pick his brain about a lot of things, fresh off being the head coach of the South East Melbourne Phoenix for the last 4 years, but a lifetime in basketball. Simon Mitchell, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, Chris.
Before we get stuck into what's going on in the NBL world, what's the last 6 months been like for you stepping out of the NBL bubble?
Been pretty busy. Got kids who are involved in the sport, so a lot of running around to their games. So that's been it's been the heavy part of that. But also just doing some work. I spent a little bit of time in Japan doing some clinics over there, and I've come back and I've been doing some consultancy work in all sports. So yeah, been keeping myself busy, but obviously keeping a very close tabs. Firstly on Collingwood and the AFL,
yes.
which be about, and of course the NBL.
No, absolutely. I'll touch on your journey a little bit later, but really our only interaction has been through post-match press conferences up until now, and that's always a little bit awkward to talk through a screen to each other. I'm fascinated to pick your brain as a coach in those press conferences. I mean, I guess my role in the NBL was to make sure that there was enough questions asked, and I tried to just give you questions that would get you talking, but there's some other people in press conferences that have different agendas and are digging for a story and trying to catch you out a little bit and trying to find a little bit of sensationalism as well, and you get some ill-informed questions as well. I'm fascinated from a coach's point of view. What's it like sitting through these post-match press conferences?
I guess it can vary depending on the result.
Yeah.
There's also an element of catharsis to it all as well. You know, you get to sort of download the game with people and whatnot. But I think you've got to approach it from, and this can be the difficult part and the balancing act for a coach. And I always try to be aware of our role in the sport, especially in Australia. And I don't know if I'm fortunate enough to have been around the NBL pretty much since its inception. It's an indicator to my age, but it's also an element of just making sure that I've always wanted this sport to really grow.
Yep.
And be the number one sport in Australia. And we all play a little role in that, in to give information to help educate and give people insight into the game. I think you've got to take on that responsibility as a coach. And, whilst it can be difficult at times, because it's emotional and you're getting hit up straight after a game, and if you've had a rough loss, you've still got to keep that at the forefront, I think. You've got to serve the game first. Yeah,
it's a great way to look at it, and I'm not sure if all coaches have that way of looking at it, and in that heat of the moment when the emotion is still running so high, it can be tough. But I was always interested to see what a coach was thinking from the other side of the screen. Now, before we get to the big talking points, Simon, this show is made possible thanks to Hoops Heaven and has been since inception. On your trips over to Perth, have you ever popped into the store?
Not yet. Next time I plan to, though.
Yes, excellent.
Usually when the trip to Perth, you're carrying a little jet lag and you've got a pretty busy schedule, so I haven't quite made it yet, but next time it may be as a spectator, so yeah, why not?
I tell you what, you did have a former player, Adam Gibson, that never missed an opportunity to pop in.
It must be freebies, because Gibbo will never tell you no to a freebie.
No, that sums him up nicely. All right, Simon, let's get down to business, because there's a lot to talk about in the world of the NBL right now, and we have to start with what happened in Brisbane on on Saturday night. First of all, have you ever seen a more angry man than Aron Baynes on a basketball court?
Oh, I've seen several angry men on a basketball floor.
Anyone more angry than that?
At least that. Well, yeah. Look, people are throwing punches and not just sort of aimed it and giving angry eyes. So, yeah. Look, it was disappointing. It was disappointing from a game perspective because I thought we had ourselves a pretty good game. And obviously, we don't know what's happened in the runway. Although some people are trying to give it a bit of trial by media with their input through social media. But until it all comes to the surface, I think whatever took place in the tunnel has taken place. But what happened on the court was within the control of Aron Baynes, and he lost control. So I'm a little disappointed for him and for Brisbane. They're trying to, I think, and Justin Schiller's done a wonderful job, but they're trying to change their image from, a team that can get a little bit discombobulated and lose their cool. And, yes, you want to play with emotion. Obviously, he felt like there was an element of justice missing from that confrontation. But, look, Aron Baynes plays physical. He walks the line of what's legal and what's not within the game. He sets those big physical screens. Is he leaning in on some of those? Is the elbow out? He pushes the line. And even on that play, he's got two blokes by the scruff of the shirt, which easily could have been whistled in Cairns' favour. He took a little elbow in the chin. I feel like, from my perspective, and look, I might be a little bit out of date with this, just given my demographic, but I still kind of ride from the old school. I don't mind a bloke like Aron taking part in the game and dishing it out and playing the physical role that he does. But I feel like you've got to absorb a hit here and there as well. So, he didn't wear it well. He didn't absorb the hit, and, it's cost his team.
Yeah, I think you make a couple of great points. I think, first of all, when he was battling with Menenga and Mayen underneath, I think he easily gave away a foul to Menenga. That could have been called, but that was let go. Lat Mayen then sort of retaliated with the elbow, and I guess only Lat knows if it was deliberate or accidental. And then, Baynesy just lost his cool, I think, based on the referee's reaction when he said that it wasn't worth a call, and I think that's what set Baynes off, and then no one could hold him back. It looked like he was ready to explode. Justin did his best as his coach to try to calm him down. We saw Nordo sort of get pushed out of the way. Sobes tried to get him in a bear hug. No one could sort of stop him. From a coach's point of view, what do you do when your player's in that situation? What would have you done?
Well, I'm not sure there's a whole lot more that Justin could have done.
No,
he subbed him out. He's brought him to the bench. Maybe get one of his assistants, preferably a big one. he's got Maybe get Vandy Jack to just march him out there. You can get straight to the car park from within about 50 metres of that bench, and maybe just get him some cool air and just talk through what's important to the team. It was commented at the time that it looks like he's trying to get a second technical foul. All his actions indicated that. And, it was even to the point where I think the refs were waiting for that substitution to happen. So if they were to give the second tech, it wouldn't be tossing him from the game. It would be actually giving a bench tech. So, look, that's what happens sometimes when the referees operate in that grey area. Now, I think Baynesy gets a pretty good whistle at the best of times. Again, he plays on that borderline that... you want to see the physicality. You want to see him in the game. And he probably gets a 51% to 49, and I might be being lenient there. He gets that benefit of the doubt sometimes. And even on that play, he's grabbing two blokes by the jersey. It's allowed to let go. Mayen again, for me, he just looked like he was trying to get leverage because he was grabbed by the, just under the collar. And he was trying to get his arm over the top so he could, maybe sit on his knees a little bit and try and get some body control because he was just completely outmanned in the the 2-on-1 and had lost control of his body. So, look, it's disappointing. I think it's disappointing for Brisbane. They're trying to re-establish their culture, and I think they've done a great job until now. And we don't judge Brisbane by any stretch of the imagination. These are some of the teething problems that are going to happen whilst they re-establish themselves.
It escalated at halftime, obviously. The first part is teams walking off through the same corridor back to the change rooms. Is that something we need to look at? Should teams be going off in different directions at halftime to avoid these sort of things?
I think you got to control the controllables in this one. And look, the locker rooms are next to each other through that breezeway. We can't restructure the building.
No, yeah.
This is what we've dealt. It's not a world-class venue. It's a great venue. Don't get me wrong. It's great to play in. It's very loud. From what I can gather, there doesn't seem to be a bad seat in the house. But it's not constructed ideally. So, but that's the venue they play out of. Bendall's a thing of the past, and this is what we deal with. Now, we're going to have to put some length in to maybe escort Brisbane through first, and then the second team, well, perhaps. But at the end of the day, I think players have just got to be more disciplined in those situations. Again, we don't know what happened at half time during that period, so I'm not going to comment on that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, all we know is that words at least are exchanged between Adam Forde and Aron Baynes. What happened beyond that, we don't know. But what we do know is what Stu Lash has come out and said from the Brisbane Bullets. He's their senior basketball advisor. I want to get your thoughts on his comments, Simon, because they're actually quite incredible when I read these back. So what he said, Adam Forde's behaviour during halftime of our game was unprofessional and unbecoming of a head coach in the NBL. For him to stand and wait outside our locker room with the direct intent to engage in confrontation with Aaron deserves multiple NBL game suspensions, in my opinion. There is a pattern of behaviour with Coach Forde that needs to be dealt with accordingly. If this was a player engaging in confrontation with a coach, that player would have consequences, and the same should hold true for a coach. I find those amazing comments. What are your reactions?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't be surprised if a fine came his way, and I wouldn't be disappointed if a fine went his way. I don't know Stu Lash, but yeah, that to me is there's an investigation going on by the NBL.
Yes,
and I think you just got to know your position in this. You're part of an organisation that's involved in that investigation. It's best to shut your mouth and let it take place. Now, again, there's emotions involved and all those sorts of things, but you've got to be bigger than the event at times, and I think it's extraordinarily disappointing of Stu. It doesn't reflect well upon his club, and he wants to go into bat for his player, but he's not only just throwing allegations, he's also throwing the case and also the penalty involved, I'm not sure he's qualified for that, and I'm not sure he's seen the evidence or heard any of the other side of the story. So, yeah, disappointing for Stu, and from the Brisbane Bullets, he's the representative of that club. I think he should maybe take a good seat and have a good hard think about how he should handle these in the future. Absolutely.
I also don't know what he's referring to with Fordy. I mean, he's the reigning coach of the year in the NBL. I think he's universally respected. I haven't heard any of these type of... He refers to a pattern of behaviour. I haven't seen anything like that from Fordy.
Yeah, I don't know Stu Lash. I don't know if he's been involved in the league for very long. He obviously knows, or he claims to know things about Fordy that I don't. Fordy's a ripper. He's done a wonderful job up there in Cairns. He's got those guys playing at a pretty high level, and I think that smear that he put in place was unwarranted and unprofessional.
Yeah, I agree. Last thing on this, because we don't want to get bogged down on it too much. Do you expect penalties to come either to... I mean, we don't know what happened, but do you expect penalties this week for Aron Baynes, for Lat May and or Adam Forde?
No, not this week. Obviously, Forde would be overseas at the moment, so whether or not they want to have some sort of judiciary via the internet, I'm not sure. But, I don't think so. From what I saw with Baynes, I think he's had his... and again, we don't know what happened in the breezeway, so it depends on what's taken place there. But from what I've seen on the court, I thought, Baynes, he's got his tech foul and an ejection, and that's his right whack. Move on.
Yeah, I agree. And let's do the same thing, Simon. Let's move on to something more positive. I want to throw a question at you. Right now, 2 weeks into the season, is Milton Doyle the best player in the league, and are the Tasmania JackJumpers the best team?
It's a very good question, and the correct answer is no. He's not the best player. Yep. Not while Bryce Cotton's upright and hooping. Sure. And whilst we may not have seen the best of Bryce in the first 2 weeks, he's been pretty darn good.
Yes.
My question about Milton Doyle, because I guess it's come up since the weekend. He had an amazing weekend, and we'll talk about him awards a little later on, I guess, in the episode. But Yeah, I don't think we saw anything this weekend that we haven't seen pretty much every weekend since he landed on our shores.
Yeah, I agree.
Tremendously consistent player, wonderful in the clutch, wonderful in pick and rolls, great decision maker, unselfish to a fault, great on both sides of the ball. I've been saying it, I said it all last year as well. He's in the top handful of players. But I think the top spot is reserved for Bryce Cotton because of what he's been able to do over a prolonged period of time. But he can certainly throw his name in with the Mitch Creeks and the Jalen Adams and the DJ Hogues, and I'm sure we'll add a few more names to the upper echelon of players in the league between now and the end of the season. But he's right up there. He's a wonderful player, and it's been mentioned, and he's very similar. Very, very similar to Leroy Loggins. Obviously right-handed, not left-handed. And Leroy is one of the all-time greats in the league, but he's just so competent and highly skilled in every facet of the game. The only thing I can think of that Leroy maybe had more opportunity to do, and I'm going back to the West Adelaide Bearcats, Leroy Loggins, before he was at Brisbane, where he may have played down the block a little bit more.
Yeah.
He was playing in the block as well as a big guard. But I remember Leroy as a young fella going to the playoffs out at Kilsyth Stadium and watching West Adelaide play. And, my recollection is that Leroy did everything. He was on the perimeter. He was in the post. He was playing the 5 spot. He was playing with a ball in his hand. He did everything. I think if everything's going well for Tassie, we'll never have to see Milton Doyle in the block.
No. Especially if Marcus Lee can stay on the court and if they get Will Magnate back as well. Having coached against the JackJumpers the last 2 seasons, they're just a hard team to beat. They just never go away. They stay in a game. They make themselves tough to play against, and they give themselves a chance down the stretch. I mean, their 2 wins this weekend against Sydney and Melbourne were terrific. Coaching against Scott Roth and his team, what makes them so tough?
I think it's the consistency with the smaller things in basketball.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know what our record is against Tassie, but I think we'd be on the plus ledger.
Yep.
I think we've won against them more than we lost. But it would be pretty close. Yeah. If I threw it out there and said have a guess, I'd probably say we're 4-2 or something like that.
Yeah.
I think the things that they do wonderfully well, they're always, they pride themselves on getting to loose balls. They pride themselves on boxing out. They pride themselves on making the effort to do the little things well. And even as you're running across half court, your opponent who's in front of you is going to stop, put 2 hands in your chest and, physically stop you from running. Now, again, that's probably right on the borderline of the rules with the way they do it, but they're so consistent with the way that they play that I think after a while, even the obvious ones, the referees will turn their eye to those sort of tactics. And, the New Zealanders like to call them hellos as you cross half court. But, it's they're so tremendously consistent with all these little physical actions, and they take so much pride in that it always keeps them in games. Now, look, there's probably a little bit of mythology being built around them because of their remarkable start to their existence. Like, they never miss a defensive assignment. Well, yeah, they do. They never have bad defense. Well, yeah, they do. Yeah. They just don't have as many as some teams, especially the teams that aren't winning. But I think it's those little things that they really take pride on, and they're just incredibly consistent, and they don't defeat themselves too often.
No, absolutely not. Now, I've just had a quick look, Simon. You mentioned you were 4-2 against them over the last 2 years. And you were acting like you were going off the top of your head with that. That's spot on. You won 4 of the 6 against them.
Okay, yeah. I just kind of quickly ran through. I remember getting pants down there in Tassie last year. We had a few blokes coming back after a break, and then we had to come back and double up against Sydney, and we won the, double overtime game.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
In Melbourne. So, I remember that one. I remember the losses pretty easily. So the only 2 losses that came to my head was that. And then the year before, we played them down the stretch of the season, and we were both in line for a run at the play. Well, we actually, we helped them out because we lost that game, and then we went over and beat Perth a week later. So the losses are pretty clear in my mind. I can only remember 2 of them.
Last little topic before we take a deep breath. When we did our season preview, Cody Ellis on this show was talking about how he just hopes we don't get too many injuries this season and every team gets a good run at it. We're not having much luck with that. We've already had to now see the New Zealand Breakers have to swap their import. Justinian Jessup has gone down with a hip injury. But gee, they've moved quickly. Anthony Lamb looks like he's going to be their replacement. And no disrespect to Justinian, but this is a guy who only, 4 months ago was playing in the playoffs or 6 months ago for the Golden State Warriors. It might be an upgrade.
Yeah, look, I think we've seen players with tremendous talent and pedigree come into our league and not necessarily read from the same sermon as these teammates. So let's wait and see on that one. Justinian is an incredible complementary player. He's a guy who's going to spread the floor. You have to respect him. He's always a threat from the perimeter, but even if he's not hitting, you've got to guard him close, and that opens up space for others on the floor. He's a very easy teammate to operate with. He's been there all in the pre-season, and I think there's a lot to Justinian Jessup than just numbers. Anthony Lambie comes in obviously tremendously credentialed, extraordinarily gifted player. Obviously, there's been some incidents in his past that have made the media before, but we don't know what's happened there, and so again. He's certainly a talented player, and New Zealand have rolled the dice here, and they would have done their research and their background checks into that. But certainly a tip of the hat to the Breakers and how quickly they've been able to move on this one.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, Simon, that's been a big first segment. Let's take a deep breath. When we come back, I'll go through the rest of what happened in round 2, and we can chat a bit more about that and get on with the rest of the show.
Sounds good to me.
He'll make it for sure. That's why I backed him on Tap Touch.
You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose Tap Touch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Imagine what you could be buying instead.
Okay, back on Hoops Heaven's basketball hustle. Let me run through the results of round 2, Simon. Started back on Thursday. The Brisbane Bullets went down to Auckland and got the win 89-84. And then we saw the Cairns Taipans beat your old team, the South East Melbourne Phoenix, 87-80. Then on Friday, Tasmania JackJumpers beat the Sydney Kings 80-72. And then the Perth Wildcats over the Adelaide 36ers 82-75. On Saturday, high-scoring game. Illawarra Hawks 113 over the Phoenix 106. And then the game where all the drama was, the Taipans beat the Bullets 89-86. And then 2 on Sunday, the JackJumpers beat Melbourne United 80-75 with a 20-3 run in the last 6 minutes, Simon. And then finally, the Sydney Kings, on the day they unveiled their championship banner, 109-80 over the 36ers. Where would you like to start? Anything jump out from those games that you might like to discuss that we haven't touched on already?
Oh, I'll start from the start, I guess. The Breakers Brisbane was we're looking for the new Brisbane Bullets, right? And part of that is to get on the road and get a scalp. And, obviously there's not too many scalps bigger than the New Zealand Breakers right now. And, tremendous effort for them to go down there. Now we've got to ask the question, New Zealand flying out for their NBA games the next morning. Are they focused? Yep. Was their mind on the job? I've got no doubt that they were, and they were just outplayed. The one thing about that game that, it's going to be something that's a work in progress. You bring a player in and as gifted as Will McDowell-White is, and I love him as a basketball. I'd put him right in amongst the best players in the league. He comes in and now everybody's got to sort of adjust to that and just Parker Jackson Cartwright down the stretch. If this game was round 1, I have no doubt where that ball's going to be down the stretch of the game, and it would have been in Parker's hands. Yes. And in this one, it went to Will because that's where it rightfully lives. But I thought a couple of times down the stretch, that ball, yes, it starts with Will, but it went to the wrong side. I thought it needed to some point land in Parker Jackson Cartwright's hands, and he was on the wrong side of the structure at the time and didn't get his bits on the ball, and I thought that was pretty key. And also, like the bank glasses, we saw some bank shots over the weekend. But yeah, that bank shot there was huge down the stretch.
Yeah, it was. I'm fascinated to get your thoughts on the Phoenix. What's it like watching this team that you built from the start? You've been their only coach for the first 4 years. What's it like watching them play now this season? Well, I'll start with the Cairns game and what it was like. I almost felt like a PTSD moment when Tyler Cook went down. Yeah.
And it's not the first time I've had it during the pre-season. Mike Kelly's a very close friend of mine, and I haven't spoken to Mike since the start of the season. I sent him a message during the pre-season cup when they got their first win to say, well done, mate, rap for you, da-da-da. But I've tried to keep him a distance because it's his club and I want him to feel like it's his team, and I don't want to be down there interfering in any way, shape or form. So I've kept my distance. But, yeah, I when Tyler Cook got hurt, I just had that feeling of, good gracious, not again. I lived it last year. I've lived it for 4 years to an extent, but I really felt for Mike in the pre-season not having access to his squad, and as the season proper started, he's struggled to get anything that resembles the South East Melbourne Phoenix on the floor. So, yeah, look, that's probably my main feeling in regards to it, feeling for Mike and the players. I just want them to get a good run at it and obviously do better than what we were able to do the last 4 seasons.
Yeah. I want to touch on that. I asked Creaky this after that game, and he either didn't like the question or he might have misunderstood it a little bit, but Creaky can be a little bit like that. But I feel like especially your last 2 years, I mean, they've been ruined in a lot of ways by injury because you just haven't been able to get a good run at having your best team out on the court. And now this year started the same. Obviously, it happened with Source going down in the preseason. Gary Brown had an interrupted preseason. Craig Moller's been in and out to start the year, and Gorjak Gak we haven't seen yet, and now Tyler Cook's got hurt already. I mean,
throw Matt Kenyon's name in there as well.
He didn't have a preseason either. Yeah, I mean, at some point, you just hope that your luck turns.
Yeah, that's all you can do. Some of these issues are completely out of anyone's control. Well, most of these issues are out of your control. And, at the end of the day, you are in charge of a group of men, and you can't concern yourself with who's not there. You've got to keep your priorities and your focus on who is there. And to be fair, when we go to the Illawarra game, they had enough on that roster to play better. And to compete and to win that game. So I reckon they'd be tremendously disappointed with that. And also, pretty much who you're going into the game with. They would have known that Tyler Cook wasn't going to take his place pretty early, I'd imagine. So you can plan for that. Now, it's very, very difficult during the course of a game when you've got your rotations out there and a Tyler Cook goes down.
Yeah.
And now you're like, well, hang on, we hadn't planned for this. Or you can't plan for something like that. And now you've got to fly by the seat of your pants a little bit. But with the Illawarra game, they had a chance to prep and be ready, and I think they'd be disappointed with that result.
I think so too, but at the same time, they were just so small. I mean, they had Reece Vague in the 5 spot, and Sam Froling and Lockie Olbrich had pretty good games. I mean, at some point, does the physical size, have an impact?
It's certainly on the second leg of a road trip.
Yeah.
It's certainly going to wear you down, but I think it's more about the way they went about it during the course of the game than just the size. Yeah. It's not like they were beaten relentlessly down in the block. Olbrich down there had some good moments in regards to passing out of the block. I thought he made some unbelievable passes out of the block, hitting blokes. So maybe they'd overextended their defence to help out on him. As a kid, I'd say, you got to beat us a couple of times before we double or overplay on you to give up those shots that he was finding for his teammates. But, yeah, I think their transition defence they'd be disappointed with. Some of the straight-line drives they would have been disappointed with. And even some of the possessions at the offensive end. I mean, I know they scored a lot, but there was a lot of no-pass, one-pass possessions. You want to make Illawarra defend. They were the worst defensive team in the league last year. And sometimes when you're just getting in an up-and-down track race, whilst you might be scoring, you're not making them defend. Yeah. So you're not tiring them out, and you're playing on the terms that they want to play on. So, yeah, I think there were some things that they could have done better there, and I think that they'll be disappointed with that result.
Friday night in Perth, you mentioned Bryce Cotton before, and I almost think that when we have discussions on who the best player in the league is, we just take it for Bryce is number 1 and everyone else is fighting for second. I mean, the 2 passes that Bryce made at the end to find Alex Sarr for those 2 threes, I mean, not every superstar is willing to pass the ball. I'll ask you about another guy with my next question that might not be a willing passer. But Bryce is a willing passer for a superstar. Yes, you might. But Bryce is a willing passer, isn't he?
Bryce is a superstar. He's a winner. He's the best clutch player we have in the league. He makes the right choices, and he's just so dangerous in the last minutes of a game. nothing he does surprises me. Everything he does, I kind of expect. Obviously, we're on the end of, surprise cotton exploits last year in the playoffs. Yeah. And, he just finds new ways to beat you. And, those passes were exceptional. They hit Sarr in rhythm. He caught the ball and shot them, in rhythm and with confidence. And I think when you've got a player of the magnitude of Bryce Cotton who's prepared to give you the ball in those situations, and it was the right decision, that can do nothing but fill a young fella full of confidence as well. So I don't think Alex lacks any confidence. He seems to be very proactive when he gets into the game. He certainly backs himself in, but when you get that sort of deference, I wouldn't call it deference, but playmaking and trust from an established legend of the game in this country, that's certainly going to help Alex Sarr's progression through the ranks.
No, for sure. Where I'm going next, I wonder if you did know where I was heading next, because I want to get your thoughts on Nathan Sobey. I mean, we know he's a superstar, he had a great fourth quarter to give Brisbane a chance. He had 16 points in the fourth quarter on Saturday night against Cairns, but there were some plays where he's not willing to give the ball up. And I thought this team was built to change that, and I thought Shannon Scott was built in to be the playmaker and to create shots for Sobes, so Sobes doesn't feel like he has to do everything. What's your take on it?
I think you summed it up. There's much more to add there. It was a great spotlight on, the differences between two very good players, or one great player and a very good player. The great player in Brian Cotton and a very, very good player in Nathan Sobey. The decision-making, yes, the attention's going to go to both those guys. And when you see people in better position and you trust them to make good basketball decisions, you got to release the ball. And the accolades will come your way. I mean, Michael Jordan released the ball to Paxson and Kerr, right?
Yes.
In those famous game-winning shots. It's about finding that balance. Firstly, you got to tip your hat to Nathan Sobey. Like, he dead set kept them in that game. It would have been nice to see him, tip our hat even further and say, not only did he keep them in there with an offensive explosion, but also his decision making and diming out down the stretch was of high relevance to a result. That would be nice, and that's a progression in his game.
It is. I mean,
it needs to be money.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Just reading between the lines about what happened at the Breakers after last year's Game 5 loss, I feel like Barry Brown just gave the ball a headache in those last 5 minutes when they couldn't score, and that's a big reason why they didn't want to bring him back, because he didn't give the ball up. Sometimes your superstars know when they have to give the ball up, and Shannon Scott's on this team to be that playmaker, isn't he?
Yeah, but I think at the same time, you've got to have the ball in that. Like, if you're playing strictly off the ball down the stretch, then you may find yourself being denied access to the ball.
Yep, no, sure.
And, maybe look at Melbourne United and who do you want the ball in the hands of down the stretch? Chris Golding. But if you've got an elite defender, can you take the ball out of his hands? Now, Cairns have some elite defenders. A guy like Bull Quall is hard to operate against. So you need to get the ball in the hands of your superstar. Now, where a player like Scott really comes into effect is the previous 3.5 quarters, where he's relieved him of ball handling duties, where he's relieved him of the number one defensive backup. So he keeps him fresh legs and fresh of mind to make the right decisions. But at the end of the game, I think you've got to have the ball in the hands of your star. We saw that with Tasmania JackJumpers on the weekend.
Yeah.
And we saw it with Perth, and we saw it with Brisbane as well. And we just got to, Nathan's just got to grow through that. But, I mean, again, you don't want to take the spotlight off the performance he had over the weekend, because he had a great game also against New Zealand. And he had a wonderful game against Cairns. And without him, they're nowhere near it in either of those games. But that next step for him into the stratosphere of superstar is consistently making the right decision down the stretch of games.
I'm nervous about where to go with this discussion, but I want to bring up the Adelaide 36ers. We talked about it with Cody last week, and he didn't see a lot of hope for them. He didn't see much hope for them in those two games that they had last weekend against Perth and Sydney. In the end, they were competitive in both, but they lost both, and they're now 0-4. What's your take on this Adelaide team? Do you see hope for them? What sort of import do they need? Where do they go from here?
Well, this is where you got to look at it with the glass half full or glass half empty, isn't it? Really, they were both competitive in these games, and they were competitive against Melbourne the week before.
Yep.
They were poor against Brisbane outside the first 5 minutes in round one, and obviously their pre-season's been ritualistically sacrificed by everybody in media. So there's certainly been an upside in their performance, but there's a ways to go. And I almost think that right now they're the antithesis of everything we love about Tasmania.
Sure.
You talk about first to loose balls, boxing out consistently. I mean, they gave up. I didn't prepare as well as I could have for this one, but I'm going to say they gave up 25 points on the O boards from memory against Sydney, and I think it might have been even 12 to Jordan Hunter on his own. Yep. We saw that against Melbourne the week before. Melbourne offensively right now are not a good ball club in the sense that they're a work in progress. Yeah. They're not a finished product. Yeah. They're a very, very good ball club, but they're not a fluent offensive team just at this point in time. And the only way they could defeat Adelaide on that day was second chance opportunities where the ball's kicking out, you got a closing out player, and there's a shooter's getting time to get it off. But as far as half-court execution, they've struggled, and Adelaide contributed to their struggles. Yep. But they let them off the hook with those O boards and those kick-outs, and that's how Melbourne got going. They had 28 points against them to get a win. Saw Sydney get 25-odd points against them to get the win. Yep. Both teams, you would say, at this point of the season, whilst extraordinarily talented, are not in the half-court where they're going to be come the end of the season. They're a work in progress. So those are the ones where if you do the little things exceptionally well, you might come away with those ones with a win. But right now, they're not doing the little things well at all.
What about an import? I mean, I spoke about it last week with Cody, and I feel like they could use an import point guard because I think ideally you don't want Mitch and Sunday Dech doing a lot of the ball carrying if you can help it, but they also need a wing who can be a great athlete and get out and run, but they also need a big man to help in the front court. So ideally they could use any of those three. If you're making that decision, what type of import do you need?
I only need 2 players.
Yes.
Yeah, an import point guard who can play the sport and force spot. No, it's a difficult one. For me, if I'm going to... Well, let's talk about the players that we just talked about who close out games. Yep. We're talking about Milton Doyle, Nathan Sobey, and Bryce Cotton. Mm-hmm. And pretty much every team in the league, who you put the ball in the hands of down the stretch of games, it's going to be your primary guard. Right now... Trey Kell had a wonderful weekend, but I'm not thinking of him as a primary guard down the stretch of the game just at this point. So, for me, my fear for Adelaide, and this is by no means at all a derogatory comment towards Jason Kadee, but I put down some notes, what I fear for Adelaide. My fear was that he became a starter. Yeah. Because if he's your starter, you're missing what Jason truly brings to your ball club. Yep. And that's that kick off the bench, savvy veteran play. If it's on, it's on. If it's not, then you park it back to the bench, and those are the things that Jason Kadee does exceptionally well. Yep. My thoughts were if he's starting for you, then you're probably going to struggle in the sense that you're playing people outside the role that you have envisioned for them. So for me, I would love to see Jason back to the role he does exceptionally well. Mitch, I'm not sure. We saw signs against Sydney in regards to becoming a little bit more aggressive at the offensive end early in the offense. He was very reluctant to shoot some of those shots that he shot on the weekend last year. Yes, he was. So, but having said that, I'm playing with I would love a game-winning point guard or guard combo that you can put the ball in the hands of and close out some of those games. They've been in these games down the stretch and they've lost in the last 5 minutes. Yep. So who do you want with the ball in your hands? That's the guy I'm recruiting. And whilst they may need some help up front, that's not going to win you games down the stretch. So I'm going with the game winner down the stretch. Yeah,
I can't argue with that at all. And the name that immediately springs to mind is Derek Walton Jr. I mean, he would be a perfect fit, wouldn't he? I mean, somebody like that.
Yeah, he's an extremely good player. I think more than most, I've been on the wrong end of his prowess. Watched him torch us a couple of times, and actually, even when he's not torched us, it's just the threat and the decision making. Similar to what we talk about with Bryce Cotton. Yep. And you saw it in the finals last year when the whips were cracking. He was making the right decisions and creating offense when they had none. I mean, I'm stretching the memory a little bit now, but my recollection, I hope it's Game 5 because I'm going to say it was Game 5, is that the things have dried up, and you're requiring players who have exceptional one-on-one ability, and that one-on-one ability is to create, not just necessarily for yourself. You know, I just remember him and Cooks being the two guys on the floor that were able to do that when it mattered most and securing a championship because of it. So he would be wonderful in an Adelaide uniform. And I hope someone like that appears for them because I want CJ to get a shot. You know, it's been a rough start to the season. I think he's held himself up tremendously. He doesn't look frustrated, although I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
But, he's presenting himself and his ball club in the best light right now. Now let's get him some help and get him some wins.
Yep. He's always got a smile on his face, doesn't he, no matter what. And, I hope he gets a good look at it too because I would hate to see him frustrated with the 3 years and it not work out and then we might not see him coach again. I would hate to see that happen. So let's hope it works out for him. But for us, Simon, let's take a deep breath. Let's have a little chat about yourself when we come back, and then we'll preview round 3 in the NBL and wrap things up.
He'll make it for sure. That's why I backed him on Tap Touch.
You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose Tap Touch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Imagine what you could be buying instead.
Okay, back on Hoop 7's basketball hustle. Let's take a bit of a different path for a little while, Simon. Let's have a chat about you. I get the feeling you're not that comfortable talking about yourself, so I'll try to make it as painless as possible. But fill us in.
This is not my favourite topic, no.
What has the last 6 months been like since the end of the last NBL season?
It's been a great opportunity for me to get some rest, to take a really good break. My biggest issue in the back half of the season, whilst there was, I guess, mounting issues during the course of the year in regards to the frustrations that I was feeling with our performances, but or more to the point, just with our player availability and just the I guess the continued frustration over a course of years, and it was just at the back end of the season, straight after the last whistle's blown, you're in recruitment mode. And it came a little quicker than I expected. I had no concern, not no concern. I was very confident we would beat Perth in the playing game. And my reasons for that were I thought we were a better team. I thought we were a more consistent team. And I thought the areas that we excel at were certain areas that Perth really struggled with. We're a good defensive rebounding team. We're good at getting to the free throw line. We're good on the offensive boards. All of the things that Perth struggled with throughout the course of the year. So for me, I went into the game relaxed, although concerned about some of the health of our players and Ryan Brockhoff coming back from injury and a few of the other guys with their niggles and whatnot. But I felt that we would be a good chance to win that. Now, by no means am I saying do we look forward. We were 100% focused, and I thought for 3/4 of the game, we were an exceptionally disciplined, well-playing basketball team. Yeah. Now, when we started giving up O-boards and second chance points, I was a little bit in disbelief of what took place and how it happened because they weren't Perth strengths. And my immediate thoughts after the game was, okay, the season's over. Now it's recruitment time.
Yeah.
And I just did not want to sit down in front of a laptop and look through 100 different players. And, it was beyond me. I was exhausted and I didn't have the energy. And so, stepping away from the game was just the logical thing for me to do. I didn't have the energy to carry the team further.
Yep.
I thought that would be better in the hands of somebody else. And that was the discussion I had with Tommy. He agreed. And we moved on. So since then, I took a nice break from anything, reacquainted myself with the family. I've been driving the kids around to their sporting carnivals and championship games and this, that and the other. And doing a little bit of consulting work as well. I did some consulting for the Japanese Basketball Association and doing some clinics over there.
Yep.
and some accreditation work, so some lecturing to coaches as well, which was fun. Different experience for me. And I've been doing some consultancy work here in Australia with different sports. So kept myself busy in sport, but had a nice break from basketball in the sense that, I don't have commitments. It took me a little while to sort of get used to the weekend. And I'd be sitting there in the sunshine reading a book and thinking, crikey, I really should be doing something right now, but I had nothing to do. So that's a nice feeling once you get your head around it. But, so I've been keeping myself busy, obviously watching every single NBL game, voting for everybody, mostly good games and hoping that friends around the league do well and just enjoying life.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating because we've talked to Cody about it as well, and he's made the decision to retire as a player, and he felt like he just needed a break from basketball. I mean, he's from his sort of mid-teenage years. He then went to the Centre of Excellence, went to college, and it's been his life, and it hasn't always been kind to him. And you probably feel similar when you've had a lifetime in basketball, and it's probably scary to step away from it, but sometimes you might just need that break.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I didn't weigh it up at the time. What's next? It sort of never occurred to me what I'm going to do next. I had no idea what I was going to do next. I didn't put any thought towards it. My thought process was, what does the South East Melbourne Phoenix need? And am I the man to provide it? And I unreservedly did not think I was the guy at that point in time. I just didn't have the energy or the want. So, didn't really think about it. And a couple of months down the line, did you make the right decision? Yeah, I have no doubt. I'm happy at the moment. But I certainly missed the game to a degree. And there's aspects of it I miss. There's parts of me that still need to sort of regenerate as well. So I'm enjoying the time. And, look, I understand what Cody's speaking of. I think it's probably a little different from a coaching perspective because if you sit out the game too long, forget about it. It's over. So I'll explore some different options in the future and see what's right for me, if they should come my way. If they don't, that's fine. I'm an educated man and I've got a bit of drive in me, so I'll find something else to do. But yeah, look, I'd be a little bit at a loss without some sort of connection to the sport that has been my life to this point, and I would like it to be my life in the future. Some way, shape, or form.
I think Cody feels similar. He can speak for himself, obviously, but he probably only needs a 1 year break, and then he feels like he will get involved in some way again. But I'm fascinated to get your thoughts on this question. I've never had a chance to ask you this, but when you start your coaching journey and start to become an assistant and start to do your apprenticeship and I guess dream of coaching in the NBL to be a head coach one day, that's the ultimate dream. When you get to achieve that dream, did the last 4 years live up to what you thought it might be like?
No, I planned for a championship in that 4 years, to be honest. And let's say, for instance, hypothetically, we won that championship last year, I still would have stepped aside because I would not have had the gas to go around again and do all the work. The loss to Perth didn't accelerate where I was at as a coach or a person. It just was the end of the season. Now it's time to make decisions. So, yeah, look, it was an unusual 4 years. It was a little bit to sort of digest. Obviously, the two COVID seasons. Firstly, our first season, I lose who was our best player.
Yes.
People don't understand. Ty Wesley was our best player our first season, in pre-season. He was doing all the things that Mitch Creek went on to do, but he gave us a different look. So we lost him 5 minutes into the season, and he never sort of recovered when he did come back 10 weeks later. So I was dealt a lot of coaching lessons pretty early on about how to persist and be strong for the team and operate outside the norm. And on top of being an expansion team, it was a great learning experience. In the next 2 years, you get your COVID. We had a little bit of success there in the second year and almost toppled Melbourne United in that game 3.
And let's be honest, you almost won a championship because you would have beaten a Bryce Cottonless Wildcats in the grand final series.
Well, look, I've got so much respect for Trevor and Damien Martin and some of the guys on that team. I would never say that we were 5 minutes from a championship. We were 5 minutes from making a final series.
Yeah.
And we didn't. So that's life. You don't live and die with the what ifs. You just learn from it and move on. And I thought we did that. It became almost obsessive for me to get back there, and maybe to the detriment of my performance. That I certainly was a coach that gave responsibilities to his assistants and let them run. But I also doing the work in the background where I probably needed to take some more breaks. But and look, to an extent, that probably added to the burnout that I felt. But I think just the magnitude of starting at franchise, the 2 COVID years, the frustration with injuries, that it took a little bit of the enjoyment away from what I wanted out of the sport. But having said all that, I'd do it all over again.
Sure. No, I think you summed it up well. And like you said at the start of this conversation, you don't like talking about yourself. So I'll let you off the hook with one last question on this topic. What's the best part about getting some more family time over the last few months?
Look, to see, I've got a son in under 16s and a daughter in under 14s.
Mm-hmm.
I got to see my son play in VC finals as a bottom age kid, doing some wonderful things with his football as well, that I've missed. During the COVID years, I used to have to sit in the car while I'd take the kids to their basketball and their sporting events. I wasn't allowed in the gym because of NBL protocols.
Yes.
There was a lot of reading time. There's a lot of cutting of film in the car. But it wasn't the most enjoyable experience, and I think it takes a toll, missing out on what they were allowed to do. So, I think reacquainting with what they're doing. I get to watch my daughter play in the under 14 national championships just this past month. And another bottom age kid too. So they're both really excelling well. And to be able to be present and to see that and see them coming along and enjoying their sport and enjoying their friendships and seeing some of the friendships that they're making. I love their friends. The kids that they're hanging out with are wonderful kids, and that makes me proud as a father, that they're keeping good company. Also have a daughter that's just bought her first car today.
Oh, wow.
This is something where I just wouldn't get to experience these sorts of things if I'm involved in an NBL team. You'd get a photo, you'd get a summarised report, but it's, you sacrifice a lot to be in the league. I'm not sure people truly understand that. They think it's all roses and riches, but you do sacrifice a lot.
Yep.
And I think that's why we've got to, we see there's lots of people who do that, whether it be in business, whether it's armed forces, first responders. There's a lot of people who give up a lot of family time. And professional athletes and coaches and staff are also in that group. Obviously, our job's not quite as important as some of the people I just mentioned, but you do miss a lot of that time, and it's been great to get back in. Although I've got to admit, I've been shackled to the kitchen a little bit. I'm doing most of the cooking, and I'm probably a little sick of seeing the stove and a pot. But yeah, other than that, I think the family might be sick of seeing me or sick of having me cook.
No,
it's been great.
Fantastic. I'm happy to hear all of that. Now, as part of this show this season, Simon, you'll be choosing the winner of the Galen Award each week for the best team man in the NBL, and there's probably some other names we could throw in there, but really there was only one option for this week, wasn't there? And it just had to be Milton Doyle for the game-winning performances that he delivered.
Yeah, look, I went with Milton Doyle for the Galen. Sometimes you can overlook the superstar when you're looking for the great team player too.
Yeah.
The other considerations I had for this were Bryce Cotton because of those passes that he made to Alex Sarr. The other guy I gave serious consideration to was Bobby Clinton.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with him in both games. I thought in the first game, they can be pretty ugly at times at the offensive end where they can go through periods of kind of like, well, where's the next bucket coming from? But Bobby was finding ways to score when they were in those moments. And then, obviously, his performance in the game against Brisbane, both from just his rim protection, his rebounding, scoring. He's a star in the making. I didn't foresee this amount of impact for Bobby this early. Now, he may have been advantaged by some of the guys who haven't been playing, but I'm tremendously impressed. He's a lot better than I realised. And but yeah, Milton Doyle, he was the man this weekend, leading his team against the two highest ranked teams for most pundits, and controlling the outcomes. It was amazing, especially in that Melbourne game in the fourth quarter.
Yep, absolutely. No, so well done. So we'll have a winner of the Galen Award each and every week, thanks to Simon. Let's get to our preview now for round 3. Thanks to TabTouch. So head to tabtouch.com.au and check out all of the odds before these games start. Just the one game on Thursday night to get things underway, Simon. We've got the Tasmania JackJumpers at home to the Illawarra Hawks. Thanks to TabTouch, the JackJumpers are 128. The Hawks are 370. I feel like it's probably a bit closer than that.
I feel like $1.28 is probably not the worst odds you could get for a Tassie win. Okay. I'm pretty confident in Tassie taking care of business in this one. Despite the media who seem to always say they protect their island and they're a Monty at home, they're actually not. They were quite inconsistent at home last year, and if my memory serves me correct, they may have batted 500 at best. So having said all that,
you're spot on. Think you go back 7-7 at home last season.
It's amazing how perception is sometimes skews reality. But, look, I think that they are so tremendously consistent in what they do, and they're up against a team who have been anything but. They're still trying to find their way, although I was very, very, very happy to see Justin Robinson return to playing. We had a really good look at Justin 2 years ago when he was playing at Delaware for the Blue Hens. The Blue Jackets, the Blue Hens of the college team. Yes. But yeah, he's a player that we looked at. We obviously didn't go ahead with him. He was going to be tied up with the Lakers for a little while in camp, and we tried to go in another direction. But yeah, it's good to see him back in form. But yeah, look, I thought they were pretty loose defensively last week. Illawarra, they're still prone to moments of head-scratching offense. I think they've got a little ways to go, and the JackJumpers are just that model of consistency. So I'm with the Jackies. 2 games on Friday night. First up, Brisbane Bullets back at home to the Sydney Kings. So this will be a fascinating one. The Bullets, the outsiders again, thanks to TabTouch, $2.40. The Sydney Kings, $1.57. What are your thoughts? Yeah, it'll be an intriguing game. Look, it's kind of differentiating different styles, and styles make fights. And because we haven't seen these two up against each other yet, it'll be interesting. Like right now, Sydney Kings out in the break, off the dribble, everything at the rim, kick outs, catch and shoot threes. They're kind of free flowing and requiring or leaning on the individual prowess of their players. Whereas Brisbane, they're big, they're more of a traditional basketball team. They'll execute and run plays. Can they consistently defend Sydney off the dribble? We're going to find out, but I'm going to just lean towards Sydney. I think the Kings are going to be a team that improves a little bit each week. And even just watching their game on the weekend, they're structured up just a little better than they did the week before, or even against Tassie. So I'll lean to Sydney, but nothing's going to surprise me in this one.
Yeah, no, I think Jalen's only going to keep getting better the more he plays, and they've still got DJ Hogue to come back into that team. Who, I mean, he was comfortably one of the best 5 players in the league last year. So you're right, they will only keep getting better. Second up, Perth Wildcats and Melbourne United. Traditionally, Melbourne love coming to RAC Arena. They've got a great record in Perth, but the Wildcats, thanks to TabTouch, $1.62, Melbourne $2.30. As an opposition coach, I would hate to get Melbourne coming off a loss like they just had on Sunday.
Yeah, no, that's probably not ideal for Perth. I'll be leaning. What are those odds again? What's Melbourne playing?
Melbourne $2.30.
Yeah, if I was betting with your money, I might swing a few on that one. I think Melbourne United they're very confident over there. Although they've had a little bit of luck to get over the line. That's what teams that have the moz on other teams tend to do, right? But now the Jackies, when you think Melbourne United's under control, the Jackies, who seem to have the better of Melbourne, just found a way to execute and score in the fourth. I think Melbourne will get them. I think Perth's lack of defence will enable Melbourne to score. They're very, very scratchy at the moment. The ball's not moving at the level that they would like. I think it's getting stuck in hand. They're pounding the air out of it at times in the guard spot.
It's a great point. It's exactly what Dean Vickerman said after the game on Sunday.
Right, okay. I didn't watch it, but that was just my feelings over the first couple of games for Melbourne United is that they haven't impressed me tremendously at that end of the floor. What I saw early in the game last time was finding the roller a little bit more. Huck Porty seemed to get a couple early, and then even going to Huck Porty in the post, I think, is, whilst he's not the most graceful, he's not reminding anybody of Tim Duncan or Kevin McHale. What it does is that you're attacking the basket from different angles, and I think Melbourne have been a little bit one-dimensional in the way that they try to score. So I think getting the ball through hands in the post, I think that's going to be an issue for, if they go that way, it could be an issue for Perth. I think Perth's lackadaisical defence will be found out. It'll allow Melbourne to score, and I think Melbourne have the nous and the endeavour at the defensive end to lock Perth down a little bit.
Yep. No, absolutely. Okay. On to Saturday, 2 more games. Check out the markets closer to the weekend and head to tabtouch.com.au for the rest of these. First up, Adelaide 36ers at home to the Illawarra Hawks. Without reading your mind, Simon, I get the feeling this is a bit of a toss of the coin one.
Rock, scissors, paper, toss of the coin, you name it. We'll find a way to separate these two. Look, it's the... I'm going to go with Adelaide on the premise of I just tossed a coin and it came up Adelaide. No, I'm going with Adelaide just because it's the second leg for Illawarra, which might work in their favour. They play the 2 games. They want to get some runs on the board. They get some minutes into these players and playing together. So it may work in their favour, but the Tassie team is tremendously physical. I've got nothing but admiration for the 36ers and the way that they've been able to fill the stands. Yeah. They haven't made playoffs in 5 years. There's nothing that we've seen so far to say that this is a year that they're going to be contending either for a championship. But the people of Adelaide keep showing up.
They do, yeah.
I think this is an opportunity for those fans to really get behind the 36ers and CJ and hopefully help them get a win. I'm rooting for them. I'm not going to throw money down on this one. I hope Adelaide come away with a W.
Second up on Saturday, South East Melbourne Phoenix. Without knowing, and we're still a little bit away from this game, but I assume Tyler Cook and potentially Gorjak Gak are back for this game, so that gives them some size up front. They're hosting the Tasmania JackJumpers.
Yeah. Tough one again. Look, the parity in our league is unbelievable, isn't it? After 2 rounds, we don't have an undefeated team. Yeah. Now we only have 1 team without a win. I go into these games with absolutely no confidence in my own assessment. I'm going to back the Jackies on this one just on the consistency that we've seen early in the season from them. Even in the Perth loss, I thought they were very good at times. Southeast Melbourne, I heard that Gorjak Gak was doing full-on 3-on-3 full-court games last weekend, which has got to be a great sign for the club and getting him returned. Hopefully Tyler Cook's eye is settled. Saw something this morning that the big source was backing on the track this week as well. So, that's a lot of hope to bring for Southeast. But there's still some structural things that they're working on at the moment. There's some things in the Illawarra game that I saw that, and even in the Cairns game, that aren't personnel issues, that they're just going to need some more time together. So just on the basis of that, I'm going to JackJumpers. But again, Southeast have had the rub on Tassie in the past couple of seasons, and they should go into that game confident. And certainly they have the personnel and the ability to win.
2 more games on Sunday, and all 4 of these teams backing up and playing on Friday night. So, I guess a lot will depend on how they go on Friday night. But first up, Melbourne United at home to the Brisbane Bullets. It's going to be physical. We know that much.
That certainly is. Yeah, there's going to be some big bodies hitting hard in that one. Obviously, there's not a rivalry, but a lot of familiarity. Sam McDaniel playing against one of his old clubs, Justin Shaw and D-Mac on the coaching staff of Brisbane. Yeah, and Tanner Krebs with United playing against his old squad. So plenty of familiarity between the two groups. Hopefully not a whole bunch of hugging before the game. Let's see another physical contest that brings the best out of both teams. And, look, I'm probably leaning towards Melbourne United at home. But, yeah, again, I would not be surprised to see Brisbane get a W here.
Then last up for the round, Sydney Kings and the Perth Wildcats. I think it's fair to say this will be the fastest tempo game we've seen this season so far.
Yeah, I think Sydney might get over the line 185 to 180. Look, reminiscing of the Denver Nuggets versus Detroit Pistons in 1985 there. Look, this could go either way. Again, go with Sydney at home, especially if Hoag's back in the lineup. That just brings another element to that team. I just think Sydney's just going to, as I said earlier, it's going to get a little bit better each week. I'm intrigued by Perth and how they make this work. Do they have the personnel that can be a good rebounding team? Do they have the personnel that can be a defensive force, especially on the road? We've seen elements of it when they've been at home. We saw them get yanked by South East, and which can happen to anybody on any given night. So the potential is obviously still there for Perth, but I'm just going to go with Sydney on this one.
Yep, no, absolutely. All right, last thing, Simon. We got two teams heading over to play NBA teams in their preseason. So we've got the Taipans playing against the Wizards on Wednesday and then against the Raptors next Monday, and then the New Zealand Breakers up against the Trailblazers on Wednesday, the Breakers against the Jazz next Tuesday. Ideally, I think this is a terrible idea to do it mid-season when your season started and interrupt your season. But funnily enough, for both Cairns and New Zealand, I feel like it's actually good timing. So for the Taipans, they're bringing back Taron Armstrong and they've just got Tajir McCall back, and they probably get to escape a little bit of the drama going on this week as well. So it gives them 2 weeks to get that group together, and the Breakers are now bringing in a new import, so it gives them 2 weeks to get their group ready. Ideally, it's not great doing this mid-season, but for these two teams, the timing might actually work out quite well.
I think you nailed it. I think this is actually ideal for both teams. 40 will get himself a good night's sleep over in the States. And, look, I think it's a great opportunity for both clubs. I'm going to Wizards, Raptors, Trailblazers and Jazz, just for anyone who's looking for my tips. But look, I've been on a few of these trips, and one of the games we had, we played Adelaide in Adelaide and then got on a plane the next morning. I can't remember what time it was, but it was before the sun was up, to fly to Oklahoma City.
Yep.
So via Dallas, I think it might have been. It's a long time ago. But, yeah, we won that game. And then when we came back, we played Adelaide again and won. And obviously the game against Oklahoma was one of the highlights of my basketball life. Yeah. I think it can be a great situation for your ball club, especially with those guys coming back in and those guys coming into the team. It's a great way to get to know each other. You're up against it. You're playing everything. Everything's against you. You're playing against the rules. You're on NBA turf. Yeah. You got an NBA ball. You got an NBA officials. You've got NBA court size. Yeah. You've got NBA 3-point lines. Like you're on foreign turf, and it's not built for you to win. And you've got the 405 timeouts per half, which the coaches need to get their head around. That's the one part the coaches will love. Yeah, look, it's going to be a great opportunity for those teams. I'm not sure either team. I think the Taipans is going to be great for their kids to showcase. Wardenberg and Menenga, and we talked about Bobby Clinton before.
Yeah, Armstrong
and a Taron Armstrong to get a little rust off the game and showcase what he can do in that wide open space with his ability to pass and see the floor. I think, provided he doesn't have the ring rust, he's got a great opportunity to really show what he can do. He's got that special passing ability. I'm not saying he's Josh Giddey, but he has an ability like that. So, I think his game will certainly translate. Some of the longer athletes, guys, that their game will translate. I'm not sure how competitive they'll be over 48 minutes. but we'll see some great moments for them. The Breakers, on the other hand, they're kind of small, aren't they? Which could certainly hurt them over the duration of 48 minutes. I think they're going to, with Cheatham at the 5, if he's lining up on NBA team, he's probably filling the spot of a small forward. So, it'll be interesting to see, and I'll watch with bated breath. Hopefully both teams do us proud. It was wonderful watching Adelaide get the win last year. I remember sitting in my office after a practice and cheering the 36ers and texting during the game. We got the messages after the game and rooting for them and celebrating them, and I was so happy for them in the NBL and took so much pride in my league and what they were able to accomplish, and I'll be doing over these 4 games exactly the same things, rooting for these guys, and hopefully they cause an upset.
No, let's hope so. All right, Simon, really appreciate you taking the time out this week. It's been good fun picking your brain, and hopefully we can do it a lot more throughout this season. So sort of between yourself and Cody, we can get through each week, and we'll have your Galen winner each week, and look forward to it. And thanks very much for joining us, and hopefully it wasn't too much trouble for you.
No trouble at all. Appreciate chatting hoops with you, Chris.
He'll make it for sure. That's why I backed him on Tap Touch.
You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose Tap Touch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Imagine what you could be buying instead.